today's notes are about the key features of a graph. So these notes are going to go on page 22 in your notebook. And you need to put a title on this page because your notes don't have one. So our title is Key Features of Graphs. And when you go back to your table of contents, this is Learning Target 4. I can identify key features of graphs, and it goes on page 22. So make sure your table of contents is filled in. When you fold these notes, when you get them, it'll look like this. You're going to fold the two halves into the center and then cut on the dotted lines. You're also going to want 4 different colors so that you can color code these notes. So choose 4 different colors that are different. Like I wouldn't choose a yellow marker and a yellow highlighter. So the 4 features of graphs that we're talking about in this unit are minimums, maximums, and then x and y intercepts. When we talk about the maximum of a graph, the maximum is the point with the greatest y value. And when you're looking at a graph, a good way to identify it is that it's the highest point on the graph. So if we look at our graph here in the center, I'm looking for my maximum, my highest point. Well, my highest point is right here. And notice that I'm color coding these with the same color. So maximum is orange, so I'm going to make that point orange. I know this is my maximum because there aren't any points above this on my graph. And to label this point, this maximum is at 3, 3. So for this graph, I would say my maximum, and I would label that ordered pair as 3, 3. The minimum is the opposite. So instead of being the largest or the greatest y value, your minimum is the point with the smallest y value. And when you are looking at a graph, that's going to be the lowest point. So if I go back to my graph, the lowest point on my graph is right here. So I'm going to mark that. Notice I color coordinated. Minimum is green. My minimum point is green. On the graph, I would label this point as -1, -4. And when I write my answer for my minimum point, I would put my whole coordinate pair, -1, -4. The other 2 key features that we're going to be talking about are x-intercepts and y-intercepts. So your x-intercepts happen on your graph where your y value is 0. So it's always going to have 0 for the y value. Your y-intercepts happen where your x value is 0. So these would always be 0, some number in here for y. So when I'm looking at a graph for my x-intercept, I'm looking for where the function crosses the x-axis. And I know that means the y value is going to be 0. So when I look at my graph, here's the x-axis. So all of the points where my function crosses the x-axis are x-intercepts. So my function crosses here, and then it goes down, comes back up and crosses here, goes up and over, and then it crosses here one last time. So this function has 3 x-intercepts, which is fine. That can totally happen. So when I'm writing my answer for my x-intercepts, I'm going to write 3 ordered pairs because I have 3 x-intercepts. The first one is at -3, 0. The next one is at 1, 0. And the last one is at 5, 0. So the y value here is always going to be 0. When I'm looking at my y-intercept, this is the point where the function crosses the y-axis. So on the graph, here's my y-axis. And if I look at my function is crossing the y-axis right here. So this point would be my y-intercept. We know for a y-intercept that means our x value is 0. So on this particular example, my y-intercept is at 0, this is like in between -2 and -3, so I would call this -2.5. If your graph represents a function, it's always going to have one y-intercept. It will never cross the y-axis twice. If it does cross the y-axis twice, that means it's not a function because it would fail the vertical line test. So let's go back and label these. All these pink ones, these were x-intercepts. This point, green point at -1, -4 is our minimum. And this point up here at 3, 3 was the maximum. So make sure these notes get glued into your notebook on page 22. And your practice assignment for this is on Google Slides. So you'll have to click on the link in the playlist to get to that.